nearly a year after the October 7th attack and the attacks from Lebanon started, Israel has finally been fighting back in Lebanon and in a less impressive way than we would like, but more impressive than we expected. But of course, the war in Gaza is not over, and Israel has still yet to finish the job there. It's nowhere near finishing the job. The way it's fighting it will absolutely, certainly not finish the job. But one of the things that we would very much like to see, and I think every decent human being has been waiting to see since October 7th, is the death of the mastermind Yahya Sinwar. Now, a couple of days ago, there were reports that he may have been killed a few days ago. Not a few days. The report was a couple of days ago, but that he may have been killed at some point by Israeli attacks, and just because there's no indication that he is still alive, there's no sort of communication from him to any of his deputies, as far as Israel knows, and some letters that were signed in his name appear to have not been written by him, which raises suspicion. Um, so yeah, Israel is now looking at it's fighting the war in Gaza potentially without its the other side's leader, and we're gonna see how that plays out if that is the case. And of course, we don't know it's the case. There were many times in the past where terrorists seem to have been killed, and it turns out they weren't. We talked a few months ago when Mohammed Def was finally eliminated about how this was the eighth attempt on his life, and obviously the first successful one, because there can only be one successful attempt on somebody's life. And yeah, this so we're still waiting to see what is the case with Yahya Sinwar. We have our hopes, but of course we don't know. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm joined by Daniel. Daniel, your thoughts on Sinwar?
Yeah, with things like this, you have to remember, people like Mohammed Dave, they have to get lucky every time. Israel only needs to get lucky once. But so when it comes to these theories, you know, I've seen many different ones from many different people. I've seen one that apparently it was just a sort of like raised question by several experts in the military intelligence directorate, Amman in Israel. That's actually the last intelligence agency. There's Mossad, there's Shin Bet, and there's Amman. Um, and I've seen, people are also saying that I think some either experts or sort of some people they have with more knowledge in times of Israel are saying this is it has no substance. We pretty much don't know. We also this specific you mentioned that many times we there's like a silence from terrorists and we presume they're dead only for them to show up later, basically. And this has happened with Sinwar also. I think it was last year around December when there was a long time silence from Sinwar, and there were also theories that he might be dead. He might have been killed, but again, also he showed up later. And especially with people like Mohammed Dave and Sinwar, it's always hard to tell. They very much make sure, or even with people, let's say in Lebanon, like Fuad Shukur, he was also someone who you couldn't even you would not be able to find in public. It was impossible. So and specifically with Sinwar, when he was released, when he joined Hamas, or when he was released to Gaza, he actually founded the Hamas intelligence unit. So he is the one who basically is the sort of like the intelligence guy. And he has been using a wide range of encrypting messaging delivered through couriers, even including civilian ones. um so yeah, he has been basically this sort of like very mysterious. You mentioned he became the basically the overall leader of Hamas. After Ismail Haniyeh was killed in July 31st. So now he is the leader, and if he has been killed, again, I don't want to put it down. If he has been killed, that's great news. If he is deceased, that will be amazing, especially for morale, because you have to remember, Sinwar was put in his position because of his popularity, because of his, in a sense, radicalness, his fierce opposition to Israel and refusal of basically even any sort of negotiations that wouldn't include basically Hamas does survive this war. So it'd be great news. I would love to have some confirmation on it, but unfortunately, I don't think we have that much to go on. As good as it sounds, we can talk a little bit later about um, sort of why Israel is, or sort of why there are these reports. I think that might be interesting. But as so far, doesn't seem to hold much credibility besides just hypothesizing.
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Thank you, Roland, for the super chat. Roland says, best show title ever. Thank you for that. That it wasn't even planned as a show title. It was in yesterday's live streamed for Inner Circle members production meeting. Just a comment I made, and Richard says that's a show title, so we decided to go with it. Um, Susie says, didn't Israel treat Sinwar's brain cancer when they had him detained? Yes. Yeah, that's what Israel does. And October 7th is what Israel gets, as payment. Um, Davy Boy says that Sinwar might be going around dressed as a female to throw off the idea. Yeah, speaking of plans for this episode, we didn't use that thumbnail, right? We ended up, yeah, one of the thumbnails we had was of Sinwar in a, what is it? What's it called?
Hijab.
Yeah, in a hijab. But yeah, we didn't go with that because we didn't want to throw off the audience. If that's good enough to throw off the IDF, then people might also not realize that it's him. So we thought better to not use that. Um, yeah, the issue with finding these people, not just when they're dressed as women, they're in tunnels. They very rarely show their face, which is in part why even with Mohammed Deif, it took so long to confirm that it's him because it seemed to make no sense that he would actually come up above ground, which he did only because he felt safe within a one of those UN, not UN, one of the humanitarian zones, and it turns out that that's not that safe. After all, Lebanon is apparently safer than Gaza for terrorists, but yeah, we're gonna talk in the next show about today's eliminated terrorist and yeah, even where terrorists are not eliminated, right? The IDF bombs, whatever rocket launchers and so on. They have, yeah, as WUB says, they have good intel. Like Israel has great intel on all these places. Um, so yeah, Israel again is fighting not the kind of war that we would like to see, but is getting results that are more impressive than anybody else fighting a war like this, and of course getting hatred. I am gonna get at some point to who was it that asked me about this? Paul. Yeah, I'll get to that after Daniel's next point.
Yeah, so when it comes to this is why I'm also relatively skeptical about, the fact that he is actually dead. Whenever Israel does eliminate like you know leaders of Hamas or sort of like high-ranking members, for example, like Mohammed Deif, it wasn't just while Israel was striking different areas, it just randomly hit something that Mohammed Deif wasn't. No, they knew he was in there and they hit it, and it collapsed in a way they believed his death. But again, as you said, it's almost unbelievable they actually got him. But similar to also Ismail Haniyeh, they knew he's dead, and that's why they strike it. So when it comes to these things, especially the high-ranking members, Israel usually knows that at least has information that someone is in there. So that's why, again, I'm a bit more skeptical. But although with Yahya Sinwar, I think even when I think he was believed to be in Rafah before Israel has invaded Rafah, uh, and I think it wasn't that he escaped Rafah, but from what I believe, he wasn't even there at the time that Israel has basically preparing to invade it. So again, with people like him, it's super hard to tell. But what I was wondering a little bit, I've seen one hypothesis that Israel, in a sense, is trying to pursue some sort of psychological warfare. Basically, especially if you say, "Hey, you haven't heard from this guy in a while," or I think Israel is even claiming the sort of the last communication that came from Sinwar didn't actually come from Sinwar. I've seen some people saying that. So again, this might just be some sort of again psychological warfare. Undermine the fact that again, if Palestinians, you don't see your leader, he never shows up. At least with Ismail Haniyeh, you at least we heard from him pretty frequently, but with Yahya Sinwar, it's pretty much never a direct communication. It's always coming through someone. Although I did see apparently I think it was trying to remember. New York Times, I think, had an article or a report that Sinwar might possess some sort of direct form of communication, or basically real-time form of communication. And apparently he was participating in the Doha negotiations, and basically he was pushing against well, he was pushing for again harder terms, and also pushing for that ceasefire had to be part of the um, I think the first or the second stage. Um, so again, with him, we simply do not know enough. But again, any sort of tactic Israel can use that would benefit them is absolutely fair game. If if these reports, if Israel spreading these reports about Sinwar supposedly being dead, if it's gonna aid them in some way, definitely do that.
Yeah, yeah. As you mentioned, alongside reports that he might be dead, we do hear that he's participating in the negotiations. We hear also that part of one of the terms offered by Israel, allegedly, we don't have any sources in the negotiations, but uh, the news outlets apparently do. One of the terms is, giving safe passage to Sinwar, which of course, again, like I don't think there should be a negotiation at all, but that is a particularly infuriating one. But then again, safe passage, if he actually wants to get out of Gaza, which I'm not sure, I think he might actually be happy to go down with the ship. He's already out. Like if he wanted to get out, he's out. He's watching this from a beach somewhere and laughing. He's not, if he doesn't need Israel's guarantee in order to be able to get out of Gaza. Um, yeah, yeah. Paul mentioned, and I want to address this because in the way it kind of the way the world looks at it. Look, as you can see, like struggle to remember what I'm about to say and forget words. And I understand that people mix words up and say the wrong thing, and it's not what they meant. But yeah, Keir Starmer today, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer spoke at the Labour Party conference and said and confused the word hostages with sausages and said we need to release the sausages. But I listened to this 5-second clip, and what's really symbolic there is that he says we need a ceasefire in Gaza and to release the hostages. And he says ceasefire, and the crowd is applauding and cheering, and they don't even hear the sausages part because that's what's important. What's important is to get Israel to stop, preventing Hamas from carrying out future attacks. Because the more Israel is present in Gaza, the more difficult it is, and the more it does militarily, the more difficult it becomes for Hamas to achieve its goal of killing all the Jews. And yeah, and then there's this thing that, yeah, because of my role and, I want to maintain good relations with the US and other countries, I have to remember what's that thing, the sausages? Oh no, hostages. That's what it looks like. And again, if this was, if British policy was pro-Israel and he made such a mistake, I think I would not even mention it because it does happen. But it happened, it couldn't have happened to a worse person. Maybe it could have, but he's up there. Yeah, that is something, that is the way in which hostages are mentioned, even when people don't mistake the word. And even that should not be what is mentioned. Like that should not be the second thing that's mentioned, unless it's second to defeat Hamas, defeat the Palestinian people, and secure the release of as many hostages as possible. That's the sequence, not ceasefire that allows the Palestinians to win, that allows more, the guarantees more October 7th and more hostages being taken. So yeah, that's my side rant there, Daniel. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we are slowly, creeping out on the October 7th in, just about 2 weeks. It's gonna be a year since Hamas has started this. And again, the just the whole response is again terrible. I just recently, well, today, I watched. There was a debate between Mehdi Hassan and it's Ilon Levy, right? The former spokesperson for Israel, and yeah, the whole debate. Again, I think it was just set up badly. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to even talk about. Like the fact that the morality currently is so absolutely flipped. Like the fact that yeah, it seems like Israel again, uh, from from what you're hearing from pretty much any not even, not just Western leaders, anyone in the world, pretty much it's all the same line. Israel pretty much should just surrender. Again, if whenever we get something like this, whenever we get the pager attack, killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the Iranian president, and just randomly blowing up, there are short times of celebrations, or whenever something bad happens, when Iran was sending out the hundreds of rockets or missiles at Israel, or when October 7 happened, you had some short time of sympathy for Israel. Uh, but you see, it's always driven up by this. It's always the most recent most recent news, and what the most recent news is, that's what sort of like takes over, or that's what sort of like becomes an opinion on this conflict. Uh, so again, I hope we'll see. I hope we'll hear about Sinwar being dead. I will hope we'll hear about more leaders being dead. But I think something good that was in the debate specifically is, I think Ilon Levy actually had like a really good comment, like pretty much something that we've been saying about this. And I think he took the sort of phrase people use a lot, that Hamas is an idea and you cannot destroy an idea. And he said, no, Hamas is an idea that can be destroyed. And Palestinian people need to know that this idea has to be destroyed, and they need to realize that starting October 7, or not just October, history didn't start on October 7. Everything beforehand they also did was wrong in the same way. It's just that October 7 was the sort of like the biggest, or the biggest thing that basically came out of Gaza. But they need to realize like this is not the way to go. Again, after Ismail Haniyeh was killed, who do they pick as their next leader? Someone more moderate, someone better? No, they choose the butcher, the biggest butcher they can find. And that's what keeps happening. And until that changes, and until Israel realize that that's what needs to be the focus, that you can kill all the leaders you want, if the people don't change, again, nothing will change. Because again, you can always find the next leader, you can always find a next sort of the next person representing the Palestinian spirit, the next person who will speak for the Palestinian ideas. It's those ideas that have to change if you are hoping to see any change in not just Gaza but all of Middle East.
Yeah, when Elon Levy was fired, we did an episode about how he was fired by Israel for being too pro-Israel. But the fact is, he is, too pro-Israel for the Israeli government. It doesn't make sense for somebody like that to be a spokesperson for this apologetic government that is not fully committed to doing what needs to be done in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, and in Iran, and possibly elsewhere. Um, but there's something about even the idea of debating Mehdi Hassan. We did a show about Mehdi Hassan a couple of weeks ago. We might do a show about this debate if enough of us can stomach watching it. But just what you just said, the Hamas is an idea. I mean, Mehdi Hassan is uh, essentially justifying Hamas by saying that, because he knows it's an idea, it is an idea, and it's an idea that's put into practice. And it was put into practice multiple times. October 7th, yeah, that's not when it started, and it's not when Hamas started. And the irony of Elon Levy not fully understanding, or the kind of saddens me to see that he doesn't understand that what needs to be defeated, it is the Palestinian idea that needs to be defeated, because Hamas is one manifestation of it. Fatah is another manifestation. The Islamic Jihad is another. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and these ideas are held by people. And for there to be peace, the people need to be defeated. The Palestinian people need to be defeated, and they need to be defeated militarily. They need to be defeated to the point of they take the idea, they put it into practice, they carry it out, and then they experience such suffering and misery that they think, you know what, this didn't work out. Or they think, you know what, suffering and misery is what we deserve on this planet. And they keep going, and they keep getting defeated. But unfortunately, it is Israel's policy to not acknowledge what the Palestinian people say about themselves, from them voting Hamas into power, but voting, those who didn't vote for them voted for Fatah. So consensus around the Jew killing part of both sides' ideology, to the point where Hamas appoints the person who led October 7th as the leader. Because, of course, this is the person who truly represents the Palestinian cause. It makes sense for him to be the leader. It doesn't make sense for anybody else to be the leader, by the way. It makes sense for him because he represents the Palestinian cause in its truest form, and he carried the idea out better than anyone else on October 7th. So October 7th is the Palestinian people. And yeah, I think Mehdi Hassan probably knows this. He might not say it. I'm wondering if Elon Levy knows it, and I'm wondering if some of Israel's finest know it, and if they do, they're guiltier than if they don't. Although if they don't, they should, as we keep saying, start listening to the Palestinians and believe them.
Yeah, and again, just to emphasize, this is at the end of the day on Israel, because when it comes to sort of like what the world would want, you have to realize the world is pushing Israel to some sort of a two-state solution. But the fact is, whenever Israel tries to do something, they cannot do it fully, because if October 7 happened while you know Israel has a strong border on Gaza, and there are many restrictions on Hamas already, and this is what happened. If you gave them a full state, just imagine if they had a full control over everything. Just imagine how far it would go. So Israel is in this situation where they are supposed to basically lift all the restriction on the Palestinians, but what the Palestinians want is killing Israelis, so lifting off the restrictions are going to lead them to that. But Israel is not willing to actually fully go to sort of the other way. Basically, yeah, occupy the land, uh, make sure to completely root out the ideology, and eventually, hopefully, the next generations, as happened with the Arabs that are currently living in Israel and are full citizens, in the same way that happened with the Golan Heights. The people there are now full citizens. Eventually, you can lead to that. But as long as Israel is trying to appease the world and basically like flipping between these two things and not really actually having any solution, again, it's just prolonging this conflict. But that's what whenever I talk about things, I never like when you try to basically put things that are in your responsibility on other people, as in waiting for the next presidential election to see who gets elected in the US, or blaming the international court, or blaming the uh, whatever else you want. At the end of the day, you are in charge and you have the responsibility. And if it is the case that when you actually become fully self-interested, fully selfish, and you pursue the right path, if what happens is that the world will somehow destroy you because of that, then you don't have any chance anyway. The only chance you do have is to do the right thing and basically go do what's necessary, what you have to do. And yeah, there's no other way out, really.
Yeah, by the way, we talk a lot about how in the Palestinian propaganda machine, putting out a lie is all you need to do. You don't need to, a year later, when facts come out, or an hour later, you don't need to explain it, or you can put a retraction. If you're a semi-respectable media outlet, you can put a retraction on page 17. But the lie lives, and we see a troll in the chat mentioning the rape of a Palestinian prisoner with a video. And of course, we showed this video multiple times on a show when we discussed it. And the video, of course, does not show rape any more than it shows a moon landing. It just does not show that. But basically, these people will tell themselves and then tell the world something that their eyes see is not the case, and that should tell you everything you know about them. Akira said sometime
Yeah,
in
and
the
just quickly, and the medical report that came out that started this whole thing proved that the injury was self-inflicted. Again,
yeah.
that came out too late. It's already the news that Israel is raping.
Yeah, but it was in the headlines a few days, and that's the only goal. And again, these people will repeat it forever, even though they saw that this didn't happen. Akira mentioned earlier that he's worried, on October 7th, people will try to, celebrate it by harming um, Israelis, Jews. I think that's a very likely scenario. If anybody wants to find me, I will be in New Jersey. Not going to give you the exact address, but come look for me. And yeah, on the reality show coming up in a couple of minutes, we are going to be talking about Lebanon and what should happen there. And we have I'm going to be joined by Marco and Richard, and first-time panelist Alex. Make sure you join us for that. The reality show starts in a couple of minutes. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on the reality show.